Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. We are trapped in this world of illusion. And because we're stuck here for a period of time, we have to deal with all of the vagaries and the chaos that illusion brings about. We have to deal with all the difficulties and the assortment of various emotions that illusion brings about. We have to deal with the rising and falling of things that illusion brings about. We have to deal with the life and death issues that illusion brings about. We have to deal with all of the various inconsistencies that seem to surround us, that cause us difficulty and cause us problems. These inconsistencies range in a wide variety of ways and places. These inconsistencies start with our desire to be free of illusion, yet as much as we intend to be free of illusion, illusion keeps beckoning us and keeps trying to get us involved, keeps trying to pull us into its game, into its play, into its drama. And this happens to each of us in different ways. To begin to understand our interplay with illusion, we have to understand that our mind is the direct connection to this illusory world that we have. It is what deals directly with this world and our place in the world. The mind is elemental and the world is elemental. The mind is temporary and the world is temporary. So you have this temporary mind dealing with the temporary situation that we're presently in. Now, in this temporary situation, we need to know that illusion is constantly beckoning us. Illusion is constantly pleading with us to enter into conversation with it, to enter into lifestyle with it, to take on its qualities. This is done by the whisperer, who whispers in our ear and tells us all of the things that we need and that we don't have and that we should have, and all of the emotional traumas that we go through, and it tells us how to correct them. And the answers that come usually deal with somehow altering the physical world to accommodate us. Altering the physical world in a way that it meets our desires and meets our needs. there is a fallacy in this position. There is a fallacy in the attempt to correct the world by altering the way the world is. The world is the way it is. The elements are what the elements are. And the elements, earth, air, fire, water, and ether, are in a state of conflict with each other. So since the world was created from elemental forces, elements that are in conflict with each other, there is going to be a constant state of conflict in the world. And as long as we involve ourselves in this elemental drama, this elemental play, we will be involved in these conflicts. Now, in our life, we attempt to have positive emotions and a positive attitude towards existence. However, there are those in the world who don't realize the benefit of being positive and are putting forth negative energy into the world. Often, we find ourselves in direct communication with these kind of people, where they are close to us and they put out negative energy. This negative energy affects us. It affects us because we haven't gotten to the point yet where we're not susceptible to our surroundings, where we are not susceptible to everything that is going on around us. We haven't gotten to the point yet where we are centered within ourselves and are not subject to the ups and downs of the negative and positive energy around us, not subject to the praise and blame that's brought to us, not subject to the difficulty that opinions cause us and that other people's opinions cause us, not subject to all the politics of the world, not subject to the world's situation, not subject to believing that we can somehow move things. At the core of everything is ourselves. And the understanding that no matter what is going on outside of us, there is still our inner self. And within this self is our connection to our Lord, our connection to His truth, our connection to His justice, and our sanctuary from all of the problems in the world. And when we can realize that we are not going to find sanctuary outside of ourselves, we will begin to look inwardly for sanctuary. And we will find a place inside of ourselves that doesn't interact with the illusory world, that isn't magnetized to the illusory world, that isn't pulled by the illusory world, that isn't pulled by external influences, that isn't susceptible to external influences. Now, that place is not the mind. As long as we stay within the mind reacts to all of the elemental forces that come to us. We know that we should be in a state of love, a transcendent state of love. The mind has a definition of love, but the mind's definition of love is a very limited definition of love. The mind's definition of love works in a quid pro quo fashion. What you do for me, I appreciate and I love because of that. When you stop doing for me, my appreciation fades and I no longer love. Love has those kinds of limitations and those kinds of conditions. So the mind's love is conditional love. The mind's love sets parameters for when it will love and when it won't love, what it will love and what it won't love. The mind sets up an entire framework of conditions for its interrelationship with others and its interrelationship with the world. That's the way the mind works. When we do any kind of prayer, when we do any kind of observance, when we do any kind of spiritual exercise, the question that we have to ask ourselves is, are we doing it through the mind? Or have we bypassed the mind and are doing it from a deeper place inside of ourselves? As long as we stay within the mind, even though our intention is set, and even though we may be doing the recitations, we may be doing the obligatory prayers, we may be doing any kind of ritual, we have to understand that we're doing it in the mind. And the mind is connected to the illusory world. So imagine being on a roller coaster ride and doing your prayers. You're going to be subject to the curves and the ups and downs and the gravitational forces that affect you while you're in the midst of this roller coaster ride. And the mind is a roller coaster ride. The mind is like being in a speeding car and trying to do your prayers. It's not easy. So what we have to find is a place that is separate from this. And what is it that makes this mind such a roller coaster ride? And what it is that it is constantly fluctuating between the past and the future. It is constantly fluctuating in time, and it is constantly creating situations in time, either past time or future time. And as long as this is going on, as long as we are fluctuating in the variations of past and future, we are being bounced around with all of the nuances that our past inflicts on us and all of the situations that our future thoughts inflict on us. For instance, somebody insults me. The mind begins to think, I've been insulted. What's my reaction to this insult? Where do I take this? How do I react to it? What do I do? future thought. It holds onto it as if it needs to be resolved. The fact that there are external influences that affect you in a negative way is not something that we will be able to stop. What we will be able to stop is our reaction to negative influences, our internal response to negative influence. My teacher used to call this the world of praise and blame. Nobody objects when people praise them. Nobody objects when people say, wow, you're terrific. Wow, I wish I could be like you. Wow, I wish I understood you better, because if I understood how you think, I would be better. Nobody objects to that. But when the other side of the coin drops, when they say, I think that you this, I think that you that, I think this, I think that, and it's a negative critique, we react to it because it hurts what? It hurts our pride, it hurts our self-esteem, it hurts our egocentric idea of who we are in time. And these kinds of pains are really difficult to deal with. And I don't mean to denigrate their severity. Verbal assaults can be as difficult to deal with as physical pain. They can be as difficult to deal with as being stabbed, because your idea of who you are, your idea of how you should be treated, your idea of self-worth, when it is attacked, feels pain. When it is attacked, goes into a phase of illness. Mental trauma can be caused by people being negative towards you. Again, dealing with the mind becomes affected. This question of time is critical to understanding our reaction to things. The mind doesn't know the difference between the past and the future. The mind feels everything as if it were going on now. So if we have in our mind that some kind of cataclysmic event is going to occur in the future, that cataclysmic event appears to be happening to us right now, even though nothing is going on right now. If something happened in the past that causes us difficulty, and we bring those past thoughts up to ourselves, we believe those past difficulties are existing right now. And we react to them if they were existing right now. So what do? Well, we try to do recitations. We try to do prayers. But if we're doing those prayers from a place in the mind, everything that is going on in the mind will be going on with the prayers. So we can be doing our prayers, and at the same time, we'll be thinking about our job. We can be doing our zikr, and at the same time be thinking about our relationship with our spouse, or our relationship with our co-workers, or our relationship with our children. Whatever is going on will go on at the same time. Now, if you can release yourself from the past and release yourself from the future and put yourself in the present moment, you can release yourself from the critique that goes on in the mind. You can release yourself from the constant jabbering about your current situation that goes on in the mind. And the only way that I know to do this is to be able to sit still as you can possibly get, in a comfortable position, and focus on Allah alone. Focus on mercy alone. Focus on truth alone. Focus on the eternal qualities that are not subject to the illusory world. And if the focus can be on mercy, and you can create a connection to mercy, then mercy will be coming into you and out of you, into you and out of you, in a circular path. It'll enter and leave and enter and leave and enter and leave. And if we can put ourselves in that kind of an equilibrium where we are in the present and not subject to the elemental hypnotisms and magnetisms and forces and pushes and pulls of the world, we can find a moment of peace. And if we can increase that moment of peace, if we can increase that time of peace within us, whenever illusion strikes us again, we can go back to that place that is peaceful. And again, it has to be understood that peace, salam, is also one of the names of Allah. So thinking of peace, concentrating on peace, being peaceful is being godly. And again, we set up a conduit between ourselves and godliness through peace. Now, this conduit of the truth doesn't go through our minds. It goes through our hearts. And if we can relieve ourselves of the mind's critical, constant badgering and constant attempt to correct situations, we can get to the space where everything is already correct. We can get to the space where there is nothing to do because it's already been done for us. And who has done it for us? Allah has done it for us. So we need to be able to get to that space. So if we go to the space of Rahman and we repeat to ourselves, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahman, we have to center ourselves in our chest, in our heart, and not center our recitation in our mind. And we have to center ourselves in knowing that the truth is, has been, always will be, and we are integrated with it. Life is ongoing. The mind deals with life in an elemental sense. The mind knows that life comes and life goes and life dissipates. And it treats things in that way. People who are overly influenced by the mind treat everything as if it were a life and death situation. By that I mean there is tremendous fear that if something isn't resolved, then death is imminent, that something cataclysmic is imminent, that something incredibly difficult is imminent. But if you have given up the belief in this world and you understand that there is another existence besides this illusory existence that we see with our senses, that we see with our eyes, that we touch with our hands, that we smell, that we taste, that we hear, that this is only one form of existence, that there is another form of existence, and it's going on simultaneously, that our sense-related existence is going on, we can pull ourselves out of the difficulties that the world gives us. Now, you should understand that when you're in a good space, when things are peaceful, when things are serene, when things are going in a correct way, your mind's influence has lessened on your being. But when things become difficult again, when you get pulled out of your peace, that means your mind's influence has come back into your being. So we have this constant struggle between the influence of the mind and the influence of desire, which acts through the mind, to the place where we are in peace and we are without need, and we have let go of things. And this struggle is what is called the inner jihad. This struggle is the great struggle in all of man. This struggle between the world and reality. This struggle between our everyday mind-influenced existence and our ability to get out of the past and the future and live in the moment without need. Live in the moment without desire. Live in the moment without grasping. Live in the moment where we accept mercy and give mercy. Where we live in the moment, and in the moment we are capable of being without the roller coaster ride. In the moment, we are capable of not being involved in all of the temptations of the world. The mind was once described as, imagine if you were in a carriage in the 1800s being driven by horses, and you have a man sitting in the front driving the carriage, and it's lunchtime, and he goes to get something to eat, but he also gets drunk while he's eating, and then your driver gets back on the carriage, and you're sitting in the carriage, and he doesn't control the horses are out of control, the carriage is out of control, and you're holding on. Well, that's what's going on with your life. You're holding on to this out of control carriage. And until you get it in control, it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to find peace. Now, what we believe is that somehow we have to correct the carriage ride. But if you can detach yourself internally from the carriage ride while you're in the carriage, and if you can find peace at that moment, then you can transcend the carriage ride, and in time, you'll be able to get out of the carriage. But if you can transcend the carriage ride while you're in the carriage, the trauma of the carriage ride won't be with you forever. And we are constantly beset by various traumas. We are constantly beset by various difficulties. Difficulties in romance, difficulties in finances, difficulties in relationships, all kinds of difficulties. But if we can learn to maintain our mercy and maintain our compassion and maintain our empathy and realize the nature of our egocentric mind and the fact that it basically only cares about ourselves and taking care of ourselves, and that this kind of thinking is only going to get us into trouble and into more conflicts and into more difficult situations. If we can begin to realize it, we won't pay so much attention to it. But we also have to give up this immense love that we have for ourselves as opposed to everybody else. We have to give up the difference between ourselves and everybody else. We have to see a sameness between ourselves and everybody we encounter. When we can see that and we can understand that, then we can think about the times that we were negative and got over it. And we can see the times that maybe we said something that was wrong and got over it. And we can learn to forgive. Forgiving is a very, very large part of getting over the pain that is inflicted by external circumstances. Forgiving is a very, very large part of the process in healing from anguish. Forgiving will help us get beyond that pain. Now, in forgiving, we also have to understand that we ourselves are constantly asking for forgiveness. We ourselves are constantly looking to be forgiven. Well, if we are looking to be forgiven, shouldn't we also be forgiving? Shouldn't we also enter into that state where we forgive others? Because if we don't, then we don't understand the nature of forgiveness, and we can't be attuned to forgiveness. Imagine you have been insulted and you have built up a barrier between yourself and the person who insulted you because of the insult. They have words for this in various languages. People put other people out of their lives because of this. In Turkish, they have a word called kus, which means that I don't talk to you anymore. I don't have anything to do with you anymore. In German, they have a word called Schadenfreude, which means you wish darkness on somebody else because of what they've done to you. There are all kinds of reactions that you can have to being caused harm by somebody else. Now, the other thing we always have to know, that we perceive things through our own makeup. We perceive things through ourselves. So sometimes we may perceive insult when no insult was meant. We may perceive difficulty when no difficulty was meant. We may just misunderstand somebody. And these kinds of misunderstandings have led to wars. These kinds of misunderstandings have led to cataclysmic results. After the Vietnam War, there were discussions between some of the generals in America and some of the Vietnamese. And we, America, had the impression that the Vietnamese were under the influence of China and were going to become a Chinese puppet. And because of that, was one of the reasons we went to war. In speaking with the Vietnamese afterwards, we found out that they had no great love for the Chinese and were not going to be Chinese puppets. They wanted their independence. Meanwhile, we fought a war for how many years over a misunderstanding between peoples? These kinds of things constantly happen. But what we need to do is we need to go to that place where there's no past and there's no future. There's only the present. Sufis are called sons of the moment. And the moment is now, and that moment never goes away, and that moment is eternal. We need to enter into that eternal moment and be with that eternal moment. So we have to find within ourselves the quietest place possible. And we have to spend some time in that quiet place. And when chaos attacks us, we have to return to that quiet place. We have to find a way to create that space within us that is beyond the influence of the world and our own chaotic mind and chaotic desires, that is free from the interference of all of the illusory energies that are constantly attacking us. It is only if we find our way to that quiet place that we'll ever find peace from everything that attacks us. Because if we can't hide from that, if we can't find the place that is without that, we are constantly in that. And that's what brings us down. And that's what brings us up. Praise and blame is very similar to being happy and sad. They have a name for this. It's sometimes called bipolar disorder. People are either manic or depressed. Well, this manic behavior is because we're so excited, and the depressed behavior is because we're so overwhelmed by sadness. Now, this doesn't have to be clinical, but it is an explanation of what is constantly going on in everybody. People are happy and sad, depending on their outside circumstances. Well, can you be peaceful and merciful because you're in that quiet place that's in the moment, that's not affected by outside circumstances? Can we do that? Can we be that? Can we be in touch with that? Can we find that place, so that when we're reciting Ya Rahman Ya Rahim, Ya Rahman Ya Rahim, Ya Rahman Ya Rahim, it isn't connected to all of the chaotic thoughts that we have. It isn't connected to our worldly aspirations or our worldly difficulties. Difficulties and aspirations have to leave us, because they will all leave us. We have to understand that in this life, there is more to it than meets the eye. There is a time beyond this. There is an eternity that we have facing us. And this moment of difficulty that we encounter is not of much meaning when we look at the eternal nature of our existence. So we have to be able to see not just what's in front of our nose. We have to be able to see what's beyond the horizon. We have to be able to be visionary beyond our momentary circumstances. And we have to know that Allah has a plan for us, and this plan is merciful, and this plan is compassionate, and this plan will take us into eternity. And as long as we hold on to what we have and aren't able to just let go of everything, we will have trouble making that transition, because that transition is going to come. And if we are attached to the world, the transition is very difficult. So somehow we have to detach from this world, and we have to find that place inside of ourselves that isn't connected to mind and desire, that place that is free of the world. And in finding that place, all of these questions will become answered. All of these questions will disappear and dissipate. Why? Because they no longer are important. The only reason these things cause us, the Italian word is agita, means heartburn, or cause us difficulty, is because we give importance to them. If we only gave importance to Allah, all of these things would fade away. So we need to be able to do that. We need to be able to give up considering all of these things important. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to resolve situations, and it always comes down to how attached are you to the resolution? How attached are you to the outcome? How attached are you to what occurs? Can you do the best you can and then leave it alone? Can you do the best that's possible and then forget about it? Can you do that? Can you understand that you're only capable of so much in this world, and you do what you can in this world, but the truth is you only believe in Allah? As my sheikh used to say, make believe you believe in the world, but only believe in God. And somehow we have to get to that place. Ya Allah, O great unique one, who is alone as our salvation and as our healer, who is alone as our sustainer, who is alone as our nourisher, who is alone as our Lord, who is the only one we look to for aid and assistance in this world. Bring it about in each of us that we understand the world through our heart, not through our mind, that we understand the world through wisdom, not through the egocentric self, that we transcend our relationships in this world and stop judging ourselves as per our relationships, that we somehow transcend our worldly needs and our worldly desires and focus on you alone, O Allah. bring us close to you. Make us among those who are considered your friends. Open up our hearts so that we can see the light of your truth and we can integrate with that. Allah, bring us to the state that is transcendent and understands the reality of you, your reality, Haq, and may Haq become our reality. Ameen, Ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.